She's faking a what? I whispered, staring at Marissa's text. They rushed her in an ambulance. But when I burst through the ER doors, Mom was propped up in a hospital bed, sipping apple juice, no IV, no monitors, laughing. The paramedics? Two boys from her church group in thrift store uniforms. She looked me dead in the eye and said, "Now maybe you'll pay your sister's debt." That's when I realized this wasn't a cry for help, it was a con. What they didn't know? I had a Plan B folder. And the real paramedics never got the call. But before we begin, let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world. My name is Elise Whitmore, and I'm 35 years old. I spend my days coordinating literacy programs at Cedar Hills Middle School, then return to my peaceful condo where everything has its place. My younger sister Marissa bounces between disasters, while our mother Gloria swoops in to fix things, usually with my checkbook. The morning light streams through my kitchen window as I sip coffee, but my shoulders tense when Mom's name flashes on my phone. Years of her sweet-voiced manipulation taught me that family emergency means Marissa needs money again. What they don't know is that I've documented every loan, every guilt trip, every manipulated crisis in a thick folder marked Plan B in my desk drawer. But let me start from the beginning. My phone buzzed again during lunch prep. Mom's ringtone, that sugary wind chime sound she'd programmed herself during her last visit. I'd been meaning to change it for months, but somehow never got around to it. You know how it goes with those little reminders of complicated relationships. "Honey," her voice dripped with that manufactured warmth I knew too well. "I was just thinking about those wonderful sugar cookies you used to make. Remember those Christmas parties when you were in high school?" My stomach clenched. Gloria Whitmore never called about cookies unless she wanted something. I balanced my phone between ear and shoulder, mechanically sorting through student papers. "They were store-bought, Mom. You always asked me to transfer them to your good plates before guests arrived." "Oh, did I?" She laughed that tinkling laugh that made my teeth ache. "Well, speaking of helping out," there it was. "I hate to bring this up, but your sister's in a bit of a situation." The familiar weight settled onto my chest. In my mind's eye, I could see her perched on her cream-colored settee, probably wearing one of those pastel cardigans she loved, phone clutched dramatically to her ear. What did Marissa do this time? Now, don't take that tone. Mom's voice sharpened before smoothing out again. "She's been trying so hard, you know that. But this car loan, well, she's fallen behind. The collections people keep calling, and I just don't know what else to do." I closed my eyes, remembering the last emergency. 6 months ago, Marissa needed rent money after blowing her paycheck on a spa weekend. Before that, it was credit card debt from a shopping spree she swore would help her dress for success at her latest job attempt. Each time I'd written the check. Each time they'd promised it was the last time. "How much?" I asked, though I already knew I wouldn't like the answer. "Just $4,000. Mom said it like she was asking to borrow a cup of sugar. "I know it's a lot, sweetie, but family helps family. And you're doing so well with your job." The words slipped out before I could stop them. "No." The silence on the other end was absolute. "I'm sorry," I continued, my voice steadier than I felt. "But I can't keep doing this. Marissa needs to handle her own finances." I don't understand." Mom's tone shifted from sweet to wounded. "After everything we've done for you, Elise, your sister needs help. What she needs is consequences," I said. The words felt foreign in my mouth, but right. "I love you both, but I'm done enabling this. If you don't help her," Mom's voice dropped to a whisper, "something terrible could happen. Is that what you want? To see your sister suffer?" My hand tightened on the phone. The guilt rose like bile, but I thought of my Plan B folder, stuffed with years of receipts and broken promises. What I want is for both of you to respect my boundaries. I have to go, Mom. I love you. But the answer is no. I ended the call before she could respond, then sat there shaking. Had I really just done that? The afternoon sun streamed through my classroom windows, catching dust motes in its beam. Somewhere down the hall, I could hear kids laughing. The familiar sounds anchored me, reminded me this was my life, not just an extension of theirs. My phone stayed silent through the rest of the school day and my evening routine. No guilt-laden texts, no tearful voicemails. The quiet felt strange, almost unsettling. I should have known it wouldn't last. The message came at 6:47 the next morning, just as I was pouring my first cup of coffee. It was Marissa's voice, high and panicked. Elise, oh God. You have to come to St. Vincent's right now. Mom collapsed. They think it might be her heart. They rushed her in an ambulance. Please, please come quickly. The coffee mug slipped from my hand, shattering against the kitchen tile. Hot liquid splashed across my feet, but I barely felt it. Through the roaring in my ears, I could hear Marissa's voice continuing. She was asking for you before she lost consciousness. Please hurry. I burst through the ER doors, my heart hammering against my ribs. The waiting room was oddly quiet. No rushing nurses, no beeping monitors, just the low hum of fluorescent lights and a bored-looking receptionist scrolling on her phone. My mother, Gloria Whitmore? They brought her in by ambulance? My voice cracked. Heart attack symptoms? The receptionist tapped at her keyboard with the enthusiasm of a sloth. Room 108, down that hall. I practically ran, my sensible work flats squeaking against the linoleum. The sound reminded me of chaperoning school dances, that same hollow echo. But this wasn't the time for nostalgia. My mother could be dying. Except, I heard laughter before I reached the room. Not tears, not urgent medical discussions, actual laughter. My steps slowed as I approached the open doorway, confusion replacing panic. Mom sat propped up in bed, looking perfectly comfortable in her signature lavender cardigan, sipping what appeared to be apple juice through a straw. Marissa perched on the edge of the bed, both of them giggling like they were at one of Mom's garden club brunches. No monitors. No IV lines. Not even a chart at the foot of the bed. Oh, sweetheart. Mom's face lit up when she saw me. You came. She pressed a hand to her chest, her expression suddenly fragile. I was so worried you wouldn't. What? I looked between them, trying to make sense of the scene. What's going on? Where are the doctors? The nurses? Oh, they've been in and out, Marissa waved vaguely. Everything's stable now. Something wasn't adding up. But you said she lost consciousness, that they rushed her here in an ambulance. Well, Tommy and Jack were very professional about it, Mom said, taking another sip of juice. Tommy and Jack? The paramedics, Marissa explained, then froze as Mom shot her a warning look. Wait. The pieces started clicking together, each one hitting like a punch to the gut. Tommy and Jack, who? Not Tommy and Jack Martinez? From your church group? Mom's face went through a rapid series of expressions before settling on what I called her garden party smile. Now, darling, try not to get upset. Those weren't real paramedics, were they? My voice sounded distant in my own ears. This whole thing, like it's not real? Of course it's real. Mom clutched her chest again, but the gesture looked rehearsed now. I was very frightened and... Where's your chart? I cut her off, moving to the foot of the bed. Empty. Your monitors? Your actual doctor? Well, they haven't been in for a while. Because you never checked in, did you? The truth hit me full force. This is all fake. The emergency, the ambulance, all of it. You had Tommy and Jack dress up in what? Thrift store uniforms? Just to trick me into coming here? Honey, please. Mom dropped the frail act, her voice turning stern. I did this out of love. You weren't listening to reason and I had to make you understand. Understand what? The words came out sharp enough to make Marissa flinch. That you'd fake a medical emergency to manipulate me? That you'd rather pretend to be dying than respect my no? Family doesn't say no to family, Mom insisted. I needed to show you how it felt, being abandoned in a crisis. Now you know what you're doing to your sister. I stared at her, really seeing her for maybe the first time. This polished woman in her coordinated outfit, sipping juice in a borrowed hospital bed, had orchestrated an entire fake emergency, complete with costume changes just to force me back in line. Do you have any idea, I said slowly, how many actual emergencies happen in this hospital? How many resources you've wasted? How many people you've lied to? Oh, don't be so dramatic. Mom rolled her eyes. No one was hurt. And now that you're here, we can discuss Marissa's situation properly. No. The word came out stronger this time. We can't. Because I'm leaving, and I'm calling hospital security on my way out to let them know you're occupying a room under false pretenses. You wouldn't dare, Marissa jumped up. Mom did this for me, because you're being selfish. I was already backing toward the door, my hands shaking. The only selfish thing here is this twisted performance, and I'm done being your audience. I walked out of that hospital room in a daze, my heels clicking against the linoleum in an unsteady rhythm. Behind me, I heard the rustle of Mom's cardigan, then her voice, rising to that perfect pitch she used when she wanted an audience. "Elise Marie Whitmore, don't you dare walk away from your mother." Remember how time seems to slow down during car accidents? That's how it felt in that hallway. Each step measured in heartbeats, each breath catching like static in my lungs. A young nurse looked up from her charts, curious. An elderly couple paused their shuffling walk to watch. "You're tearing this family apart." Mom's voice cracked with theatrical precision. "After everything I've sacrificed." I kept walking. Out through the automatic doors, past the wheelchairs lined up like sentries. The Oregon autumn air hit my face, carrying the scent of wet leaves and early darkness. I'd parked in such a hurry I'd left my car crooked across 2 spaces. Funny the details you notice when your world's imploding. My phone buzzed before I even reached home. 5 texts from Marissa, each more hostile than the last. 3 voicemails from Mom. I deleted them all and poured myself a generous glass of wine. The same Cabernet I'd been saving for my upcoming promotion celebration. The irony wasn't lost on me. You know that calm before the storm? That's what the next few hours felt like. I sat in my favorite reading chair, the one I'd splurged on after my first year of teaching, and watched the sun set through my living room window. The same view I'd loved for its peace now felt like it was closing in. Mom never let things go. Never. The first hit came at 8:47 p.m., my principal David calling after hours. "Elise?" He sounded uncomfortable. "I just got off a rather concerning call with your mother." My stomach dropped. "David, I can explain. She's worried about your mental state. Says you've been acting erratically, making accusations. Something about a hospital incident?" The wine turned sour in my mouth. She faked a medical emergency to manipulate me. I called her out on it. "Look," he sighed. "I know family stuff is complicated, but she mentioned potential classroom stability issues. I've never brought personal issues to work." My voice shook. "My evaluations prove that." "I know, just handle this, okay? We don't need this kind of drama right now." By morning, Mom had moved on to phase 2. My cousin Rachel forwarded me Mom's Facebook post. "Heartbroken that my own daughter would abandon her mother in the emergency room. Prayers needed for this difficult time." The comment section overflowed with sympathy for her, outrage at me. Aunt Susan called to tell me I should be ashamed. I was in the teacher's lounge trying to choke down lunch when Marissa's text arrived. "Hope you're happy. Mom's devastated. Check your mail." The certified letter came that afternoon. I stood in my kitchen, hands trembling as I read the legal notice. Marissa was suing me for $47,000, claiming I'd promised to cover her car payments and rent. That I'd emotionally manipulated her into financial dependence. That I owed her for years of unpaid labor, helping me grade papers. All lies. Every word. The fury hit like a physical force. Not the hot, quick anger I'd felt at the hospital, but something deeper, colder. The kind that starts in your bones and works its way out. I could feel it burning beneath my ribs, spreading through my chest like ice. My phone kept lighting up. More flying monkeys dispatched to shame me back in line. More social media tags. More concerned colleagues giving me sideways looks. Mom and Marissa had launched their nuclear option, certain I'd crumble under the pressure. I sat at my kitchen counter, the legal summons spread out before me, and felt that familiar tightness in my chest. The same sensation I'd gotten every time they'd needed just one more favor, just a little help, just this once. But this time, it wasn't guilt squeezing my lungs. It was rage. The Plan B file in my desk drawer suddenly felt less like paranoia and more like prophecy. Years of documented loans, text messages, bank transfers, all meticulously saved, just in case. I'd been the responsible one after all. Always prepared. The summons stared up at me, Marissa's accusations typed in cold, legal language. Mom's latest voicemail played in the background, her voice wobbling with practiced grief. "Your sister needs you. I raised you better than this." The next morning hit like a hangover, even though I hadn't touched another drop of wine. My phone showed 27 missed calls and a tsunami of texts. I scrolled through them while my coffee went cold, watching my reputation unravel in real time. "How could you abandon your own mother?" That was from cousin Rachel. "Students deserve a teacher they can trust." Anonymous email, probably from one of Mom's church friends. "We need to discuss your commitment to this department." My supervisor this time. I'd spent the last decade building my life brick by brick, my career, my home, my peace of mind. Now Mom and Marissa were taking sledgehammers to the foundation, and everyone was cheering them on. Remember those old disaster movies where the hero tries to warn everyone about the incoming tsunami, but nobody listens? That's how I felt trying to explain my side. The truth couldn't compete with Mom's performance as the devastated mother or Marissa's victim narrative. But she faked the whole thing, I told my Aunt Susan over the phone. There weren't even any real paramedics. Gloria would never do that, Susan cut in. You're under a lot of stress, dear. Maybe you should talk to someone. Even my closest colleague, Jenny, kept her distance in the teacher's lounge. I'm sure there are two sides to this, she said. But her eyes wouldn't meet mine. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just Mom lashing out or Marissa being Marissa. This was coordinated, strategic. They weren't just trying to shame me back into line. They wanted to isolate me completely. I started gathering everything. Every email, every text, every bank statement showing money transferred to Marissa's account. My hands shook as I dug through old files, finding receipt after receipt. God, how had I never added it all up before? The total made me sick. But the more I documented, the more their gaslighting worked its way under my skin. Had I imagined the fake EMTs? Was I remembering things wrong? Mom's voice echoed in my head. You always were prone to exaggeration, sweetie. That night, I barely slept. Every time my phone buzzed, my heart raced. More flying monkeys? Another legal threat? The walls of my carefully built life felt like they were closing in. I dragged myself to work the next morning, dark circles under my eyes. The whispers followed me down the hallway. In my classroom, I stared at the stack of papers I needed to grade but couldn't focus. Mom and Marissa's voices tangled in my head, making me question every memory. Then, during my lunch break, something clicked. I was picking at a salad I couldn't taste, replaying that hospital scene for the 100th time when a detail surfaced. Those EMTs, they'd walk straight into the ER with Mom. No check-in, no triage nurse. No hospital security clearance. Real paramedics can't do that. They have to register every admission, coordinate with hospital staff, transfer care properly. I'd seen it firsthand when one of my students had a seizure last year. The memory was crystal clear. Mom walking in with two young guys in thrift store uniforms, heading straight for an empty room like they owned the place. No paperwork, no procedures, no actual medical staff involved. My fork clattered against the desk. The fog of self-doubt lifted, replaced by cold clarity. This wasn't my imagination playing tricks. This was proof. I pulled out my phone and started searching local EMT protocols. Every hospital website confirmed it. Ambulance crews have strict admission procedures. They can't just waltz in with a patient and disappear. My hands weren't shaking anymore as I opened my Plan B file and started a new section. Hospital irregularities. The facts lined up like dominoes. Mom's miraculous recovery. The missing medical chart. The vanishing EMTs. This wasn't just a manipulation. It was amateur hour. They'd been so confident in their power over me, they'd gotten sloppy. I was adding these notes when another wave of texts hit my phone. More relatives piling on. More colleagues concerned about my stability. More threats from Marissa about the lawsuit. But this time, I didn't feel the panic rise. Instead, I felt something shift inside me, like a key turning in a lock I didn't know was there. You know that moment when you're solving a puzzle, and suddenly all the pieces start clicking into place? That's what happened next. But trust me, the picture it revealed wasn't pretty. I waited until my prep period, then called the county EMS dispatch center. My heart was racing so hard I had to take deep breaths just to sound normal. Hi, I'm following up on an emergency response from last Thursday, I said, gripping my phone tight. The address would be 1542 Maple Grove Lane. The dispatcher's keyboard clicked in the background. What time was the call placed? Around 8:30 a.m. I could still hear Mom's voicemail. Rush to the ER, come quickly. More typing. Ma'am, I'm not showing any calls or dispatches to that address last Thursday. Are you sure about the date? My free hand clenched into a fist. Completely sure. The patient was Gloria Whitmore. Possible cardiac event? Nothing for that name either. Would you like me to check surrounding dates? No, I said softly. That tells me exactly what I need to know. After hanging up, I sat at my desk, letting reality sink in. No ambulance, no emergency call, no dispatch record. Mom hadn't just exaggerated or bent the truth. She'd orchestrated a complete fiction. Remember those old cassette answering machines? How you could replay messages over and over? I wish I had that now, but I did the next best thing. I pulled up Mom's voicemail and hit play, really listening this time. Elise, it's happening. They're taking her to St. Vincent's right now. The paramedics just got here. Please, you have to come. The tremor in her voice, the strategic pauses, it was all theater. But something about those paramedics nagged at me. Two young guys in EMT uniforms that looked not quite right. A little too casual. A little too thrifted. I opened my laptop and typed fake paramedics into YouTube. The first few results were news stories about scammers, not what I needed. I refined the search. Fake EMT pranks. And there they were. The channel was called The Prank Bros, two local teenagers who filmed elaborate setups around Portland. Their most recent video thumbnail showed them in familiar-looking EMT uniforms, grinning at the camera. My cursor hovered over the play button. Did I really want to know? But that's the thing about truth. Once you start pulling the thread, you can't stop until the whole sweater unravels. I clicked play. What's up, pranksters? Two faces filled the screen, the same faces I'd seen at the hospital. Same sandy blonde hair on the taller one. Same patchy attempt at a beard on the shorter one. They were showing off their latest thrift store finds. EMT uniforms, complete with patches. Got these bad boys for $15 each, the taller one bragged. Perfect for our next epic prank. My stomach lurched. I paused the video on a close-up of their uniforms. The patches were faded, the stitching loose, exactly like what I'd seen that day. Even the slight tear on the shoulder seam matched. You're probably wondering how I could be so sure. When you spend your life watching for signs of manipulation, you notice details. It's like your brain takes snapshots, storing them away until they make sense. I checked the channel's About section. Local boys, all right, based right in Cedar Hills. One was the son of Mom's bridge partner, Ellen. The connection was right there in black and white. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely type notes. The video was dated 3 weeks ago, plenty of time for Mom to spot it and hatch her plan. She'd probably thought it was clever, using local kids. Keep it in the community where she could control the story. But she'd forgotten one thing. Lies leave traces. Always. I downloaded the video before they could delete it, took screenshots of everything. Each click of my mouse felt like another nail in the coffin of their scheme. A student's question about homework snapped me back to reality. I looked up to find my classroom filling with 8th graders, their chatter a stark contrast to the cold knot in my stomach. Just a minute, I called out, quickly saving my files. But as I closed my laptop, my phone lit up with another barrage of texts. More relatives just checking in, more thinly veiled accusations. Finding Lena wasn't hard. She still tended bar at the Copper Cat downtown, same place she'd worked when Marissa dated her 2 years ago. What was hard was walking in there, knowing I was about to drag up memories nobody wanted to revisit. The afternoon crowd was thin, just a few regulars nursing beers in dark corners. Lena stood behind the bar, wiping glasses with mechanical precision. Her buzzed black hair caught the neon beer signs, creating a halo effect that made me smile despite everything. She'd always been the steady one in Marissa's chaos. Well, look what the cat dragged in. Lena's voice held more curiosity than bite. Elise Whitmore. Never thought I'd see you here again after, you know. I slid onto a bar stool, my rehearsed speech evaporating. Yeah, about that night. Water under the bridge. She set down her towel. What can I get you? Actually, I need to ask you something about Marissa. The glass in Lena's hand stilled. Thought you might. Saw her posts about you online. Pretty nasty stuff. None of it's true. The words tumbled out before I could stop them. Mom faked a medical emergency to manipulate me, and now they're both spreading lies, saying I abandoned the family? Yeah, that's their favorite storyline. Lena's dark eyes met mine. Used it on me, too, when I wouldn't let Marissa move in here rent-free. My breath caught. When was this? 6 months ago. Said you'd promised to cover her rent but bailed last minute. That's why she needed my spare room so urgently. Lena's laugh was sharp. Funny thing is, when I asked her for proof you'd agreed to pay, she blocked me everywhere. The familiar acid taste of betrayal rose in my throat. How many others had Marissa told I'd promised to pay her bills? I've got texts, Lena continued, pulling out her phone. Screenshots of everything, including where she admitted the whole thing was a lie right before she blocked me. Been waiting for someone to finally ask. Remember when I said evidence leaves traces? Sometimes those traces are people. People who've been burned by the same flame. I've got a lawyer friend, I said carefully. From college. She thinks we might have a case for defamation, especially with the fake emergency worker angle. The what now? Lena leaned forward. I told her everything. The staged collapse, the thrifted uniforms, the YouTube channel. With each detail, Lena's expression hardened. Those little punks were in here bragging about their acting gig last week, she said. Didn't connect the dots until now. Want me to pull the security footage? My heart skipped. You have cameras? Honey, it's a bar in Portland. We've got angles on every corner, and those kids love to run their mouths. She grabbed her phone again. Let me call my manager. We keep footage for 30 days. While she made the call, I pulled up Caroline's contact info. My college roommate had become a civil litigation attorney, and her first reaction to my situation was pure legal fury. Intentional infliction of emotional distress, she'd said. Plus defamation, possible fraud. Give me 24 hours to draft something. Got it, Lena announced, returning. Manager's pulling the footage now. But there's more. She hesitated. Marissa's been telling people she's living with me again, using my address on job applications, loan documents, everything. I found out when debt collectors started showing up here. The pieces clicked together. Mom's urgent call about Marissa's car loan, the collections threats. They weren't just targeting me, they were burning every bridge in sight. I want in, Lena said firmly. Whatever you're planning, whatever your lawyer friend needs, count me in. I've got 6 months of bounced rent checks, forged mail receipts, everything. I studied her face, looking for doubt. This could get ugly. They'll come after you too. Let them try. Lena's smile was wolf-sharp. I've got nothing to hide and everything documented. Question is, are you ready for this fight? The weight of my Plan B file, all those carefully gathered receipts and screenshots, suddenly felt less like paranoia and more like preparation. I thought of Mom's performance in the hospital, of Marissa's smug face as she filed that lawsuit. I'm done being their safety net, I said. Time to show them what happens when the net fights back. Lena raised an imaginary glass. To burning bridges we should have torched years ago. My phone buzzed. Caroline, sending preliminary paperwork. Lena's manager appeared with a USB drive of security footage. And there, in that dim bar on a Tuesday afternoon, our war room was born. Caroline spread the timeline across my dining room table, color-coded sticky notes creating a rainbow of deception. 3 laptops hummed around us while Lena nursed her 4th coffee, dark circles under her eyes matching mine. We'd been at this for 16 hours straight. Okay, walk me through it again, Caroline said, tapping her pen against a yellow note. Timestamps are everything here. You know that satisfaction when puzzle pieces finally click? This was better. Mom's first call came at 7:42 p.m. on Tuesday, I said, pointing to the phone records. The emergency voicemail hit at 6:03 a.m. Wednesday. Hospital security shows her car pulling in at 5:47 a.m., which means she was already there, Lena cut in, sliding forward a screenshot. Before she even left that voicemail about being rushed to the ER. Caroline nodded, making notes. And the fake EMTs? 2 teenagers in thrifted uniforms. I pulled up the YouTube channel on my laptop. Their latest video shows them bragging about an acting job at that exact hospital. Timestamp, 6:15 a.m. Wednesday. Plus my bar's security footage of them celebrating their performance that night. Lena handed over the USB drive. Full confession on camera, including how much Gloria paid them. The memory of those boys high-fiving in their costume shop uniforms made my stomach turn. How many times had Mom pulled stunts like this before I started keeping records? Here's where it gets interesting, Caroline said, highlighting a section of her notes. The hospital has no record of Gloria checking in through emergency services, but she held up a printed form. We have security footage of her walking in through the main entrance, completely unassisted. My hands clenched. She didn't even pretend to look sick until I showed up, which the cameras also caught. Lena pointed to another timestamp. 3 different angles of her transformation from power-walking socialite to suddenly frail mother. Oscar-worthy. I remembered the scent of her perfume when she'd hugged me in that hospital room, playing the victim. No hint of medical antiseptic, no hospital bracelet, just her usual cloud of expensive flowers and guilt. The real gold is this, Caroline said, laying out a stack of documents, Every time Marissa used Lena's address without permission, every bounced check, every loan application listing fake employment history, and she paused for effect. Every social media post where your mother claims you abandoned her during a medical crisis, we can prove never happened. Don't forget the texts, Lena added, scrolling through her phone, where Marissa admits lying about me agreeing to cover her rent, and about Elise promising to pay. My chest tightened at the sight of my name in those messages. How many other people had they dragged into their web? Caroline gathered everything into neat piles. We've got intentional infliction of emotional distress, defamation per se, fraud, harassment. She looked up at me. This isn't just defensive anymore. We can bury them. The weight of it all hit me. Every receipt I'd saved, every screenshot I'd archived, every gut instinct I'd followed despite their gaslighting. My hands should have been shaking as Caroline laid out the countersuit papers. Instead, they were steady as stone. One signature, she said softly. That's all it takes? Lena squeezed my shoulder. You're not the bad guy here, Elise. They did this to themselves. I thought of Mom's tearful performance in the hospital hallway, of Marissa's smirk when she filed her lawsuit, of all the years they'd counted on my guilt to keep me in line. The pen felt light in my hand, natural, like it had been waiting for this moment. I signed my name with careful strokes, each letter a declaration. I am not your victim anymore. Caroline gathered the papers, checking every page. I'll file first thing tomorrow. Once the judge sees this evidence, she shook her head. They won't know what hit them. They never thought I'd fight back, I said, staring at my signature. That was their mistake. Lena started packing up her laptop. Want to know their bigger mistake, thinking you were alone? I looked at these two women who'd become my war counsel. Caroline with her legal brilliance, Lena with her fearless truth-telling. Mom always said family was everything. She never mentioned chosen family could be stronger. Caroline slipped the papers into her briefcase. The court date's already set, 2 weeks from Thursday. Good, I said, standing straighter. I'm ready. 2 weeks crawled by like molasses, but Thursday morning hit me like a freight train. I stood in my bathroom, gripping the counter and staring at my reflection. The woman looking back wasn't the same one who'd rushed to that hospital weeks ago. She looked harder, clearer. You've got this, I whispered, smoothing my navy blazer. The fabric still held a trace of cedar from my closet, a scent that always reminded me of my first apartment, my first real taste of independence. Before Mom and Marissa started chipping away at it, Caroline met me on the courthouse steps at 8:45 a.m. Everything's in order, she said, patting her briefcase. Judge Matthews has a reputation for being thorough. That works in our favor. I nodded, my throat too tight for words. We'd been over the evidence a dozen times, but seeing the building's granite columns looming over us made it all suddenly, terrifyingly real. Lena arrived moments later looking sharp and charcoal gray. Heads up, they're coming. She squeezed my arm. Don't let them see you flinch. Mom's silver Mercedes rolled up like a battle cruiser. The passenger door opened first, and Marissa emerged in designer white, playing innocent victim to perfection. Then Mom stepped out, wrapped in one of her signature pastel suits, pearls gleaming. A small cluster of relatives, mostly Mom's cousins and their spouses, formed a protective circle around them. Aunt Sarah shot me a disappointed look as they passed. The whispers started immediately. Such a shame. After everything Gloria's done for her. Ungrateful. My knees went weak. For a split second, I was 12 years old again, standing in our kitchen while Mom listed all the ways I'd let everyone down. But Lena's hand found mine, warm and solid. When I looked at her, she gave a single firm nod. Right. I wasn't that scared kid anymore. We filed into courtroom C behind Caroline. Mom and Marissa's little entourage filled the first 2 rows behind them, a wall of judgmental stares. Their attorney, Mr. Reynolds, was already shuffling papers at his table, radiating expensive confidence. All rise. Judge Matthews entered, a woman in her 60s with steel gray hair and sharp eyes. She reviewed the initial filing with quick efficiency, then fixed her gaze on Reynolds. You're claiming Ms. Whitmore owes substantial damages for emotional distress and unpaid loans? Yes, Your Honor. Reynolds stood, oozing charm. My clients have suffered greatly from Ms. Whitmore's sudden abandonment of her family obligations, particularly during Mrs. Whitmore's recent medical crisis. Objection, Caroline cut in. No medical crisis occurred. We have evidence proving it was staged. The judge's eyebrows rose slightly. That's a serious allegation, counselor. We have video footage, Your Honor, plus documentation from emergency services showing no calls were made that day. Mom's perfectly composed face cracked for just a moment. Marissa shifted in her chair. Reynolds recovered quickly. Your Honor, regardless of any confusion about that particular incident, the emotional impact on my clients, I'd like to review this footage. Judge Matthews adjusted her glasses. And the emergency services records. I watched Caroline approach the bench with our evidence. My pulse hammered in my throat. This was it, the moment all those years of careful documentation would matter. The judge examined each item methodically. These appear to be security camera timestamps from Cedar Hills Memorial Hospital. She looked up at Reynolds. Your clients claim emergency transport arrived at approximately 6:15 a.m. that Wednesday. Yes, Your Honor? Then perhaps you can explain why this footage shows Mrs. Whitmore entering through the main lobby at 6:07 a.m. walking unassisted. A murmur rippled through the gallery. Mom's spine went rigid. Additionally, the judge continued, I have confirmation from county dispatch that no emergency calls were placed from or regarding Mrs. Whitmore that morning. She set down the papers. Mr. Reynolds, are you aware that filing false claims about emergency services constitutes a serious offense? Reynolds tugged at his collar. Your Honor, if I could have a moment to confer with my clients. By all means. Her tone could have frozen water. In fact, I'd like to review all of this evidence thoroughly, including... She held up a USB drive. This security footage from the Black Rose Bar and Grill, showing two young men discussing payment for impersonating paramedics? Mom's hand flew to her throat. Marissa's carefully made-up face went pale. I felt Lena's quiet satisfaction radiating beside me. The truth was finally coming out, piece by documented piece. The judge set everything aside with deliberate care. I believe we need to examine these materials in detail. Court will recess for 1 hour while I review the evidence. The gallery erupted in whispers. As the judge left the bench, I caught Mom staring at me, not with anger or defiance, but with something that looked almost like fear. For the first time in my life, she was seeing me clearly. When court resumed, a projector screen had been wheeled into place. My stomach clenched. Seeing the evidence was one thing, but watching Mom's lies exposed in front of everyone? That was something else entirely. Remember those Sunday dinners where Mom would lecture about keeping up appearances? The irony wasn't lost on me now. Before we proceed, Judge Matthews began, I want all parties to understand the gravity of what we're about to review. She nodded to the clerk. Roll the first clip. The footage flickered to life, grainy but clear enough. There was Mom, striding through the hospital's main entrance at 6:07 a.m., her signature pastel suit pristine. No wheelchair, no paramedics. Just her oversized handbag and that purposeful walk I'd seen 1,000 times when she was headed somewhere to fix things. A gasp rippled through her supporters. Aunt Sarah's hand flew to her mouth. Mrs. Whitmore, the judge's voice cut through the murmurs. Would you care to explain this discrepancy? Mom's lawyer leaned in to whisper something, but she waved him off. Your Honor, I was having heart palpitations. I drove myself because I didn't want to burden... The next clip, please. This one showed the hospital parking lot. Two young men in badly fitting EMT uniforms lounged against a beaten-up Civic, taking selfies and laughing. The timestamp read 6:25 a.m., 10 minutes after Mom claimed they'd rushed her in. Marissa squirmed in her chair, whispering furiously to Reynolds. He kept shaking his head, sweat visible on his temple. For context, Judge Matthews continued, we have sworn statements from Cedar Hills Emergency Services confirming no calls were logged from Mrs. Whitmore's residence that morning. No dispatch was made. She shuffled some papers. We also have social media posts from these young men advertising their services as costume players for pranks and parties. Mom's perfectly coiffed head dropped slightly. I'd never seen her posture crack like that before. Furthermore, the judge continued, the hospital has no record of Mrs. Whitmore being admitted, examined, or treated. The only notation is her request for apple juice from the cafeteria. She looked up, her expression stern. Would anyone care to explain? The silence in the courtroom felt heavy enough to touch. I could smell Mom's signature perfume from here, the same scent that used to fill our house whenever she was disappointed in me. Reynolds stood, straightening his tie. Your Honor, while there may have been some theatrical elements to Mrs. Whitmore's hospital visit, The underlying emotional distress, theatrical elements, the judge's tone could have frozen fire. Mr. Reynolds, your clients filed sworn statements claiming emergency medical transport. They've accused the defendant of abandonment during a life-threatening crisis. Now we have clear evidence this crisis was fabricated. Marissa leaned forward, whispering something that made Reynolds shake his head sharply. The court has one final piece of footage, Judge Matthews continued. From the Black Rose Bar and Grill, dated the evening before this incident. My breath caught. This was the clip Lena had found, the one that broke everything open. The screen showed a dimly lit bar. There were the fake EMTs again, this time in regular clothes, counting cash at a corner table. The audio was faint, but clear enough. Yeah, the old lady paid extra for the uniforms. Said her daughter needs to learn some kind of lesson. Mom's face went ash white. Several of her supporters stood up and quietly left the gallery. Judge Matthews clicked off the projector. I believe we've seen enough. This court will recess for 1 hour while I consider the serious violations of legal process we've witnessed here. She fixed Mom and Marissa with a look that made me glad I wasn't in their shoes. I strongly suggest both plaintiffs and their counsel use this time to reconsider their position. The gavel cracked like thunder. Mom didn't move, just sat there staring straight ahead while her carefully constructed reality crumbled around her. Marissa was already backing away, throwing accusations at Reynolds in harsh whispers. Lena squeezed my hand. You okay? I nodded, watching Mom's remaining supporters file out, their whispers now carrying a very different tone. The truth was finally out there, impossible to smooth over or explain away. All rise, the bailiff called as Judge Matthews left the bench. Mom finally turned to look at me. For a moment, I saw past the makeup and pretense to something raw and desperate in her eyes. But this time, I didn't feel the usual stab of guilt. I'd spent too many years drowning in that look. The recess clock started ticking. 1 hour until everything changed. An hour later, we filed back into the courtroom. The tension felt like static electricity against my skin. Mom had reapplied her lipstick, but her hands trembled as she clasped them in her lap. Marissa kept shooting panicked looks at Reynolds, who was methodically shredding a yellow Post-it note. Remember those moments in old westerns right before a showdown? That's what this felt like. Except instead of tumbleweeds, there was just the soft whir of the courtroom's air conditioning. Judge Matthews didn't waste time with preliminaries. Having reviewed the evidence and considered the serious nature of the plaintiff's deceptions, this court finds overwhelmingly in favor of the defendant. She fixed Mom with a steel-edged stare. The original claim is dismissed with prejudice. Furthermore, I'm awarding damages to Ms. Elise Whitmore in the amount of $25,000 to be paid jointly by the plaintiffs. Marissa made a choking sound. Mom's spine went rigid. Additionally, the judge continued, this court takes a very dim view of using emergency services as props in personal vendettas. The footage will be forwarded to the district attorney's office for review. She shuffled her papers. Ms. Whitmore, do you wish to pursue criminal charges regarding the defamation campaign? I thought about all those nights I'd laid awake, watching my professional reputation unravel. No, Your Honor. The truth coming out is enough. Very well. She turned back to Mom and Marissa. Consider that mercy. This court is adjourned. The gavel crack echoed like a starting pistol. Within minutes, phones were buzzing throughout the gallery. Lena, bless her, had already hit post on her carefully prepared social media statement, complete with court documents and that damning video clip. Your mother's leaving, Lena murmured, nodding toward the door where Mom was making a beeline for the exit. Her usual cluster of friends had evaporated, leaving her to navigate the courthouse steps alone. My phone vibrated. It was Sandra from HR. Just saw the judgment posted. Your position was never in question, but I'll make sure everyone knows the full story. Take the rest of the week. Paid leave. You've earned it. I slipped the phone back in my pocket, feeling lighter than I had in months. Across the room, Marissa was having an intense conversation with someone on her cell. From her expression, I could guess who. Her landlord must have seen Lena's post about the unpaid rent. How long do you think before the eviction notice hits? Lena asked, reading my mind. Knowing Carl, he's probably already printing it. Reynolds brushed past us, briefcase clutched tight. He'd already filed paperwork to withdraw as counsel. Smart man. A small commotion drew my attention to the hallway. Mom stood frozen, staring at her phone. From the way her social circle operated, I knew exactly what she was seeing. Dozens of unavailable messages where her carefully cultivated relationships used to be. The country club set didn't tolerate scandals, especially ones involving fake medical emergencies. Elise! Marissa's voice cracked as she hurried over. You have to help me. Carl's talking about back rent and damages. He says I have 3 days to... No. The word came out soft but final. But I'll be homeless. Mom's accounts are frozen for the damages, and I don't have anywhere to... Should have thought about that before filing false claims, Lena cut in, her tone arctic. Or before running up 6 months of unpaid rent while buying designer bags. Marissa's face crumpled. For a second, I saw the little sister who used to crawl into my bed during thunderstorms. But that girl was long gone, buried under years of manipulation and lies. The judgment copies are being distributed now, my attorney said, appearing at my elbow. Do you want to wait for... No, I said again, stronger this time. I think we're done here. We walked out together, me, Lena, and my lawyer, leaving Mom and Marissa to face the consequences of their choices. Outside, the October air felt crisp and clean. A few reporters lingered, but they weren't interested in me. Their cameras were trained on the courthouse doors, waiting for the real story. The socialite who faked a heart attack and the daughter who tried to steal her sister's savings. My phone buzzed again. 3 more messages from Mom, 2 from Marissa. I clicked block without reading them. You okay? Lena asked as we reached the parking lot. I thought about Mom's crumbling social empire, about Marissa's impending eviction notice. Yeah, I said. I really am. Back in my condo, I dropped my keys in the ceramic dish by the door, the one I'd made in 3rd grade, back when Mom still praised my efforts instead of measuring them against Marissa's. The familiar weight of coming home felt different now. Lighter, maybe. Or just more honest. You know that moment when you finally set down something heavy you've been carrying? That's what winning in court felt like. But I knew there was one more thing I needed to face. The box had lived in my hall closet for years, pushed to the back behind winter coats and old yearbooks. I'd labeled it School Memories because that felt safer than Things That Still Hurt. My hands trembled a little as I pulled it down. Funny how even victory doesn't erase all the old reflexes. Remember those keepsake boxes they made us decorate in elementary school? Mine was plastered with careful rows of butterflies, each one perfectly spaced. Mom had supervised, of course. Presentation matters, Elise, she'd say, adjusting my scissors grip. Even at 8, I was being molded into her version of perfection. I settled cross-legged on my living room floor and lifted the lid. The familiar scent of old paper and dried flowers wafted up. Mom had insisted on pressing a rose from every special occasion. Each one came with strings attached, though I didn't know it then. My fingers brushed past merit certificates, newspaper clippings of school achievements, careful report cards. Everything that proved I was the responsible one, the strong one, the one who could be counted on to fix everyone else's messes. Then I found it. The photo was tucked inside a cream-colored envelope, the kind Mom used for important documents. I remembered the day it was taken, my high school graduation. I'm standing straight-backed in my honors cord, smile bright and earnest. Mom's next to me, one hand on my shoulder like she's claiming territory. The inscription on the back knocked the breath from my lungs. My strong girl. My throat tightened. Those 3 words summed up everything. The expectations, the manipulation, the way she'd turned my reliability into a weapon against me. I'd been her insurance policy all along. The steady investment she could cash in whenever Marissa's latest crisis needed funding. A car horn blared outside, jolting me from the memory. Through my front window, I spotted the first news van pulling up. Word must have spread about the court ruling, about the fake heart attack, the staged emergency, all of it. The photo felt heavy in my hands. That young version of me, so eager to please, so certain that if I just tried hard enough, worked hard enough, sacrificed enough, I'd finally earn the uncomplicated love other daughters seemed to get for free. No more, I whispered. My shredder hummed to life. The heavy-duty one I'd bought for sensitive school documents. Fitting, really. I held the photo over its waiting mouth. That smiling girl deserved better than being someone else's safety net. The paper caught. I watched Mom's perfectly composed face split into strips, watched my younger self disappear into the cross-cut blades. The sound was satisfying in a way I hadn't expected, like the sharp crack of breaking chains. More cars were gathering outside now. I could see camera crews setting up, reporters checking their microphones. They wanted the story. The dutiful daughter who finally exposed the truth. The socialite mother who orchestrated her own downfall. The sister whose greed destroyed her last safety net. I straightened my jacket and moved toward my front door. The porch light was already on, casting a warm glow across my welcome mat. Through the window, I counted at least 3 different network logos on the waiting vans. For a moment, I remembered Mom's constant lectures about appearances. The world is always watching, Elise. Never let them see you falter. Well, she was right about one thing. The world was definitely watching now. But I wasn't going out there to maintain appearances or protect the family name. I was going to tell the truth simply and without shame. My hand rested on the doorknob. Inside, the shredder had gone quiet. That old photo now nothing but confetti. Outside, cameras turned toward my door, their lenses gleaming in the early evening light. The courthouse doors felt lighter as I pushed them open. Late afternoon sun hit my face, and for a second I had to squint against the wall of camera flashes that greeted me. It was surreal. All those lenses pointed my way, not at Mom's carefully composed face or Marissa's practiced pout. Just at me, stepping into the light on my own terms. You know that moment in old movies where everything goes slow motion? That's exactly how it felt. Each step down those marble stairs was deliberate, grounding. The click of my sensible heels, the ones Mom always criticized as too practical, echoed like punctuation marks. Ms. Whitmore. The reporters' voices overlapped. Can you comment on the ruling? I caught sight of Lena leaning against the courthouse pillar, arms crossed, that knowing smile on her face. She'd been right all along. The truth would set me free. But first it would piss a lot of people off. The thought made me smile too. Microphones clustered in front of me like eager flowers. Behind them, I spotted familiar faces from local news stations, their expressions hungry for the story. But this wasn't about revenge anymore. This was about something bigger. The court's decision speaks for itself, I said, my voice steady and clear. The words felt right in my mouth, no tremor, no hesitation. The evidence showed a deliberate pattern of manipulation and fraud, including a faked medical emergency designed to extort money. More flashes, more questions. The crowd had grown, courthouse staff and random passers-by joining the press circle. I remembered all those times Mom had coached me on public speaking. Smile more, stand straighter, be agreeable. But her rules didn't apply anymore. Your mother and sister, one reporter started, have been legally barred from contacting me, I cut in. The statement rang across the courthouse steps like a bell. The judge was very clear about that. They're also facing significant financial penalties. Someone called out about Marissa's bankruptcy filing. Another mentioned Gloria's social circle turning their backs. But those details felt distant now, like reading about strangers in yesterday's news. A young reporter pushed forward, her eyes sharp with genuine curiosity. What would you say to other women dealing with family manipulation? The question hit home. I thought about that shredded photo, about years of being the strong one, about all the women out there still trapped in their own versions of my story. My chest tightened with unexpected emotion. Family doesn't mean servitude, I said. The words carried across the suddenly quiet crowd. Not anymore. More cameras flashed, catching my profile against the courthouse columns. The angle felt symbolic somehow, like those old portraits of pioneers or suffragettes, women who'd broken free of something heavy and dark. Lena pushed off her pillar and walked over, her boots clicking on marble. She squeezed my shoulder as she passed, heading for her car. Her work here was done. We both knew it. The sun was starting to set behind the courthouse dome, painting everything in warm, decisive light. I felt its heat on my face, so different from the harsh fluorescence of Mom's carefully curated world. A breeze lifted my hair, the practical cut she'd always hated, and I didn't smooth it down. One last question, called the young reporter. What's next for you? I looked straight into her camera, thinking of my quiet condo, my fulfilling job, my life built on my own terms. The answer came easily. Peace, I said. Just peace. The word hung in the air like a benediction. More flashes caught the moment. Me standing tall, face clear, no shadows left to hide in. Behind me, the courthouse doors swung shut with a final, satisfying thud. I believe stories like this find us for a reason. If this one touched you, please subscribe. I share a new one every day. And tomorrow's might be the one your heart's been waiting for.